Beautiful. Thank you very much, everybody. Cheers, Cam, for that introduction. Thanks to Matt and Stephen before us as well. So hi, everybody. I'm Kris Brown. I'm the VP of Product for Record Point. I'm going to do a little bit of a demo to start with. I think both Stephen and Matt touched on this a little bit, but it's always fun. I find people have sort of played with ChatGPT a little. I know we've seen some bits and pieces come up. I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to have a bit of a play. But once I get the guys to chuck up my screen, I'm going to jump into ChatGPT and we're going to ask it to do my presentation for me because that will be a lot easier. I can take a seat and then you can all just watch through. So we'll get the guys to bring that screen up. Beautiful. If you haven't logged in before, just jump in. It's free. It'll answer all your questions. We'll talk a little bit about this in a moment. But what I'm going to get it to do is just a quick little introduction. Can I have a 3-paragraph introduction to AI helping with information management? All right, so it's going to do my job for me now. You're going to see it's going to produce a bit of a script. We'll probably agree with most of that. That's kind of fun. It's pulling that data from the internet, but you can't see it all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chuck it into script for you, and I'm going to get it to read this out. And let's do it with my voice. That'll be fun. So we'll get it to just do that work. Now, while that's calculating in the background, it's actually generating that entire script. It's going to talk with my voice. I'm going to talk for a little bit so you get used to my voice if you haven't met me before. And then we're going to see, hopefully, there we go, 5 meg, 2 meg, done. Now, for all of the words it doesn't recognise, it's going to say the word gibberish. Right? So just again to show that we're doing this live and real, I did not produce the script beforehand, the AI did it, and now we're going to ask it to play that back.
Their strategies, improve customer experiences, and stay competitive in today's fast-paced information gibber landscape. In this ever-evolving digital age, I's Jabber in information management continues to expand its horizons, promising even more profound impacts on how we harness and derive value from data.
So we did that in 3 minutes? I don't have to be here anymore. I'm just going to press play and let it do the rest. So we're actually in a world where, I think someone mentioned it before, we're in this world of deep fake. When you're ready, guys, I'll get you to chuck that presentation back up for us now. We're in a world of deep fakes. It's really, really easy to be me. I could have done that with video as well. It just would have taken a little bit longer, and given the session's only half an hour, I just wanted to do the audio. It took me 10 minutes to train the AI on my voice. You'll hear my intonation. You'll hear me do the same sort of, I'm accused regularly of having a little sing-song voice as I talk along. I like to sort of make it a little bit more interesting. It sounds like I'm interested in what I'm talking about, and the AI sounds the same. It's a little bit monotone, and if I spent a little bit more time with it, it would actually have more of my sing-song nature of recording the details. So really, what is AI though, right? Like, we all think that's AI. I've got something that's read a bunch of information on the internet around what is information management and how AI might be helpful. It's pulled that detail together, and then I've used AI again, and I keep using air quotes, but I've used AI again to actually come up and give my voice to pull that back. Now, at the end of the day, this is all just computer code. There's lots and lots of different things that it can do, but let's have just a quick little deep dive into the different types of AI. There's that very, very simple, we would have seen it back in the day of the expert system. We follow a path of yes, no answers and get to a result. I remember in high school, and I won't age myself here, but I remember in high school we built a very, very simple expert system for doctors as a part of a computer project where it's like, do you have a high fever? Yes, no. Are you feeling dry in the mouth? Yes, no. And you could work your way through to a very simple set of diagnoses. Now, of course, there's WebMD. It's doing exactly the same thing now. Doctors are ultimately using their experience to walk you through those areas and using different data points as they're working with you to get that information. There's then machine learning. You'll hear it used interchangeably, AI and machine learning. Machine learning is more statistics-based. It actually works on all of the different information that it has, many, many data points, to generate insight, to understand what might be more accurate or less accurate. It's never perfect. It's statistic-based, and 55% of statistics are made up. But it looks real. We just saw AI give us a couple of paragraphs around what it thought it could do for the information management industry. That's using machine learning. It's read the entirety of the internet back to September 2021 in the case of that model, and anything new it wouldn't know about. And then there's the new class of AI, and this is where we're starting to see things like it helping to do graphics and do artwork, to use the voice areas, is neural networks, trying to replicate the way in which the human brain works. As we understand more and more about how that works, we're trying to codify that and help obviously make good decisions to get further insight. It's important though to note that while all of these things are all sort of bundled up under AI, and you're looking at a really, really simple statement here that I don't want to come on stage here and go, AI is doing all this cool stuff, it just did my speech for me, it's here to replace me. AI is absolutely not here to replace you. However, the person who knows how to use AI might be here to replace you. That's a really, really key statement. And so for me, what this session's about is just to demystify it a little bit. You don't have to be a technologist to actually utilise AI. As you just saw, my kids have had a lot of fun with my voice. They've pranked their mum. They've typed in some things into Descript and then put the phone over the computer speaker and done all sorts of nasty things to their mother. And it's a little bit of fun, but when she rings you and says, you've been in a car accident and, where are you and you need help, that's probably just, they've taken it too far. Whoops. These are some of the ones you may recognise. So Meta, our friends at Facebook have it, the OpenAI out of Microsoft, Bard. I don't know whether you saw the news, but it's early days of Bard from Google. They thought it went sentient, very Terminator 2. It was starting to ramble and start to tell stories and all sorts of fun stuff. It's just not true that it was sentient. It was just, again, learning and working through what it was doing. But there's a ton of them. There is so much going on in this space that even someone like myself who's keenly invested in understanding what's going on, there's far too much to sort of look at all of that. You've got plenty to do. What you really need to understand is how does all this come together and what are the different sorts? So we've given sort of that high level piece. I want to describe a little bit about what ChatGPT is. ChatGPT is what's called a large language model. Now, this is a neural network, as I said, in those three types. What it's using is immense volumes of data to take insight and learn from. So it's used effectively the entirety of the internet to learn. If you've ever published a post on information management, you've ever read somebody else's post or blog on information management, it's highly likely that so has ChatGPT. And it's consumed that in its neural understanding and gone, you know what, 55 blog posts have said that this is the way something is done, so therefore this must be the way it's done, because only 3 say that it's done another particular way. And it's important to understand that it's just doing that with statistics. It's just looking at the numbers. It's not necessarily accurate or true, and we'll talk a little bit about where these things fall down in a moment. It can hold a conversation though. I could bring the ChatGPT back up and I could start talking to it about all of the individual ways in which AI could help information management. Spend 20 minutes one day and have the conversation. You'll end up finding you've sat through an entire RIMPA conference as this thing rolls out, cliche after cliche around what information management is, what records management does, how we can add value in certain scenarios, what are the worst case scenarios. It could write all of our presentations for it and would seem valid. Importantly though, it's got no understanding of its accuracy, and I will come back, but they are hugely convincing. My son, proud dad brag for a moment, my son is off to London in a couple of months to represent Australia in trampolining of all things. It's an Olympic sport. One day he'll grow up to be a Cirque du Soleil performer. I'm investing an awful lot of money on that apparently. But the long story short here is that we've written a whole bunch of applications for government grants and other things because it just is an immense money sink. And I've used ChatGPT in a lot of cases to write those for me. It's awesome at it. It can punch out a really good grant application. And for the most part, it's all true. You do a quick little fact check at the end. At one point there, my son was the Australian champion of the other 21s. He's 15. But you just minor issues that you sort of have to change there. But certainly, it's taking a lot of legwork out of writing a good grant application. For those who respond or give out grants, apologies. You're going to get some really high quality stuff from here on in. It's very, very easy. So what are they good at? They understand words and context. They can put phrases together. They can understand concepts. They seem hugely proficient at what they're doing, and they're very, very good at classification, believe it or not. Right? They are actually able to say, you know what, this type of information belongs here with this other type of information. They're able to generate coherent and grammatically correct text. They write better English essays than I will ever do. They've got me covered 100%. Thankfully, English wasn't a key requirement for an IT degree. And certainly, they're able to manipulate that text. They can summarise. They can understand what it is. These are all things that we as professionals could use more of. If you think about what our IM skills are, is how do we classify this information? How do we apply retention to this information? How do we manage this information? It's being done at such a scale now that we're no longer able to be the entire subject matter expert for the business. However, with a tool like this, maybe we're able to reach even further into what businesses are doing. There are limitations though. They don't reason. They look like they reason. Like you can have an argument with ChatGPT. It's a lot of fun. If you're into debating, ChatGPT has the entire internet at its disposal. So pick a topic you know more about, otherwise you're going to lose. But it's not really doing reasoning. If you actually jump in, you'll actually see flaws in its arguments. But if you sit through debates anywhere, there's probably lots of flaws in their arguments too. It's make stuff up and look good until you fail. It can't do math, believe it or not. It's not built to do math. It looks like it could do math, because as long as someone's written on the internet somewhere that 2 + 2 is 4 enough times, it knows that 2 + 2 is 4. But it doesn't know how 2 + 2 becomes equal to 4. It's not what it's designed to do. We'll talk about this in a moment, but it cannot be relied on as a source of knowledge. We've had Cambridge Analytica with the Trump election. We've had plenty of deep fakes. We've had it's all on the internet, and as far as ChatGPT is concerned, that's its data source, real or otherwise. It has bias as well. So if it reads nothing but information from, say, South Africa from the 70s through to the 90s, it's going to have a huge bias because that's the information that would have been available to it. That's what would have been published. And more importantly, it's a bit like a child. For those of you who've got kids, it kind of tries to give you the answer that it thinks you want, and which is kind of interesting. And so that leads me to hallucinations. ChatGPT hallucinates. It's what's called when it gets stuff wrong. I have gone into ChatGPT, and if you've never built an account, feel free to try this one at home. Jump in and ask it, who was the sole survivor of the Titanic? Now we know 70 plus people survived the Titanic, right? We all know that. We've seen the movie. Jack didn't make it. If you ask ChatGPT that, you've led it down a path. Who is the sole survivor? It will give you an answer that says, the sole survivor is, and it will pick one of the people that survived. I've had answers from the baker that was in the kitchen to a number of well-to-do women to one of the crew. depending on what day I asked it and how it was feeling at the time. And it's wrong. And if you reply to ChatGPT and say, I thought 70 people survived the Titanic, it will correct itself and go, oh, you're right, actually, yeah, there was 73 people and here's the list. So it hallucinates. It tries to give you the answer that it thinks you want. So depending on how you phrase the question, you may get a question, an answer that's biased to your question. So you cannot rely on it in the sense of it asks the question, it gives me a reasoned and knowledgeable answer. But as I said before, what it can do is go, this type of data belongs with this type of data. It's the same, grammatically, in its content, in its context. And that becomes really important for us. The records are the source of truth, not the actual source data that you trained it on. Now, in an information management world, in a system like Record Point, for example, we expect our records teams to be able to go in and say, this information, these files are invoices, these files are administrative files, these files are contracts, these are HR recruitment documents. These are things that you do every day and for the most part probably have a whole stack of information that is relatively accurately catalogued today. Using 50 of those documents, you can train the AI model to forevermore catalogue information like that for you. And it will be two things, more accurate than humans, and it will do it 24/7 without a break at scale. That leads to some challenges, but I'll talk about them in a moment. You can also use them to enrich the documents. You know what, this document looks like an invoice and I can see the detail inside of it, like what's the supplier, here's where the tax information's available, what were the terms and conditions. And it can pull that information out and put that into a system for you if you want. So you can actually start to use the data itself to provide more metadata for finding it in the future. Let's show me all of the files related to a supplier. If you've got an AI model that's actually pulling that information out for you, you will find more of that than if you waited for everybody in your organisation to select the right supplier when they're cataloguing the information. Why is that not the best way to do it? I've actually stood on this stage and said the best person to catalogue the information is the person creating the information at the time that they created the information. And I probably believe that right up until the point where ChatGPT showed me it was wrong. And the reason for that is because people are apathetic. I've got a job to do if I'm in finance, and one of my jobs probably isn't putting the right supplier on a record in the record system. I just need to get through this screen and get on with my job. That there's a level of apathy that a large language model doesn't have. And people make mistakes too. I don't really know what the supplier is here or what type of document this is. The subject matter experts are in this room. The subject matter experts can train the model, and the model can pretend to be you. Just like a moment ago, that AI pretended to be me for this room. You can actually have a conversation with it when you're looking for information. You don't have to go search, field, field details, star, and then hope that you get some sort of match. You can go, hey, can you get me all of the information related to supplier X? Or can you find me all of the information related to this particular topic? And it will return what it thinks is the right information from your data. More importantly, it'll do that based on the training model that, again, this room created. The subject matter experts are in this room. You can take this childlike form that is this AI and clone yourself to do these things 24/7 consistently and more accurately than potentially even yourself would do. And then more importantly, they can actually be used to pull that truth out. Show me all of the information we have, but I'm looking for this particular thing. You can actually have it build that information for you. And so when we start to talk about AI and we start to talk about it in information management, what you're actually seeing is there's this entire world of helpers waiting to help you. And I think this starts to ring true now with that statement before, is that it's not AI that's going to replace you. It's the person who's bringing AI along with them to do the job. Now, I've talked a little bit about large language models, and we're all like, I've not seen any large language models in the information management space, Kris. But what I want to tell you is that there's a bunch of AI out there right now that you're probably already using and don't realise, and you've never been threatened by it. And that's probably the big thing here, right? Like there's a lot of this going on that you actually see today. All of these things are in some way, shape or form related to artificial intelligence and machine learning. Your IT department will be using spam filters. You've more than likely run some sort of deduplication across your environment. You've either used a chatbot or you've got Siri. Apologies, I won't say the hey in front of that and cause all your phones to go off. I even move my watch because I'm the arm waving guy and it goes off all the time. But you've used these services. They're already there. They're a part of what you do every day. Natural language search. If you've gone to Google and gone, what was Britney Spears' #1 hit in 1998? That you didn't say search field is artist, is Britney Spears, search field is #1 hit. Like you didn't do that. You just asked it a nice thing. You do this already. This is all part of AI, understanding the context of what you're asking for and getting those things. These are just some examples. And a lot of these are either built into the tools you're using today, and if they're not, come outside and have a chat to some of the tools that are outside there today, because they're doing all of this stuff for you already. But it's not just as simple as chucking in a tool. So there are things that you do actually need to do. There are things that your organisation needs to change. There are things that you need to champion. The big one for me is the top one. How many people here believe that their information management program captures every single piece of information across the entirety of their organisation? That's a lay down misère, that one, right? Why not? I can tell you a couple of reasons, the simple ones. How do I connect to that system? I heard Stephen in the first one talk about, we need to be engaged at the very earliest of a system being built. If we're not there, then we're highly unlikely to get that information too. There are platforms that can do this now. There are platforms that can scan all of your systems. There are platforms that can help you connect to the systems of importance of the business and then apply this AI to them. We don't rely, and I've said before, I've been on this stage. I've been here for 22, this is my 22nd year at RIMPA. I've been on this stage and I've said the best person to capture it is your user in your environment at the point. I just don't believe that anymore. I've not seen an organisation succeed that way. Not for lack of trying. I've seen some awesome ways that organisations have tried to succeed. There was one Australian federal government organisation, they offered a pay rise if people catalogued one document a month correctly. One. They saw a spike in their support desk calls as people rang up at the end of the month and went, oh dear, I have not catalogued anything yet and I don't know how to do it. How do I do it? And then they would do it, and then 30 days would pass. Oh dear, I have not done that yet. In a federal government agency, to tie the annual pay rise to a KPI around capturing information correctly just to try and drive a different change in the business was huge, and it still didn't succeed. We incentivised them with cash, and the researchers in that organisation still wouldn't do it. They were too busy. Sit on the file share. Someone else can take care of that for me. It's not my problem. I'm leaving in 3 years when the project's done. I won't be here in 20 years' time. You've all heard the excuses, right? So you have to think about ways to do this, because the model is only as good as the data it's trained on. If you don't train it on all the data, the model's only going to be part of your data, and it's only going to be part right. So you have to understand, how are you going to get to everything? The best part is you don't have to get to everything tomorrow. You just need to know how you're going to get to it, because it does help you to train. This is an ongoing process. If you train it some more and it gets better, and you train it some more and it gets better, it consumes more data and it gets better. There's no consistency for the stuff that is captured. You've got this system that manages this stuff. The finance team has got a system that's in place for their invoices out of SAP. The other guys over here have got something else. And so now you've got 2 and 3 and 4 systems. How many people in the room have got more than one information management system? I know the results of that because I asked you in a survey and you told me already, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. But yeah, most of you have more than one system. So now there's no consistency. Those systems don't talk to each other to say, hey, we're capturing the same sort of information in the same way. That doesn't happen. So you have to be able to get consistency. What's one of the key things that AI does? It's repeatable. It'll do it the same way every time. The cool thing about that is when it gets it right, you can be really, really comfortable in the fact that it's getting it right. When it gets it wrong, and you find out it's getting it wrong, you can change it and make it so it's right, and from there on in, it will always be right. This is the beautiful thing about an AI model. It is consistent. Little bit off topic, but it is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. We're not aligned with the rest of the business. We're not aligned with risk. We're not aligned with privacy. We're not aligned with cyber. Imagine if you could produce a report that said, oh, by the way, cybersecurity team, I have all of this private information living in these unsecured environments over here. What do you want to do about that? Imagine if you go to the privacy team and say, you know what, I just noticed that we have 50 items sitting in SharePoint with credit card details in it. What do we want to do about that? Your system can do that for you. AI can pull that information out for you. You can see that as the worker. You could have a dashboard that just shows green and red across all the different sources of the business. And you can go red when something bad happens. We did a trial at Record Point with around about 30 customers at the beginning of the year. We turned on our platform to detect these sorts of things inside businesses. Across the entirety of those 30 organisations, I think we scanned somewhere in the vicinity of 100 million records. So we looked at and scanned in the background 100 million records for PII and PCI information. 1% of the information of those organisations had credit card details in it. How many records have you got? Multiply it by 1%. Is it more than 100,000 records that you've got? Yes, it is. If 1% of them have credit card details on it, 1,000 credit card details exposed by insert your agency here, boom, on the front page of insert your local newspaper. You don't even know it's there. They didn't know it was there. 6% of that information had what I would call critical PII. Tax file number, passport detail, file name, address, email, Medicare card, all together. 6%. Some of it's probably valid. It should be there, it's in a system appropriately. Is all of it there appropriately? I don't think it's 6%, but that's true. Why would you keep it? How many people ended up in the Optus hack? I'm not going to Optus bash. Me. I was an ex-customer. I hadn't been a customer for 7 years. As an information management professional, I was pissed. That was the polite version, sorry. Like, literally found out the day before I had to travel to the US. I was going to be away for 5 weeks. I had to go and line up in a 3-hour line to get a new driver's license, just so that I was assured that when I got back, I didn't have a whole bunch of new credit cards under my name. I didn't do anything wrong. I gave my credit card details and my driver's license to get a phone 10 years ago. After 3 years, I moved to another provider. No harm, no foul. There's no reason for them to keep that information. And probably the last one. The effort to capture doesn't match the value delivered. Today, it's hard. Right? So if I say to you, go and get it all, you all look at me like, dude, that's really hard. Right? And that's why we don't do it, because it's really hard. It costs too much, and then we don't really see the value. Oh, that system over there doesn't really have anything important in it. We've made a bit of a decision. That'll be on a spreadsheet somewhere that says it's got data, but I don't really care about it. And it's just not right, because again, if 1% of it has got credit card information in it, and you don't know about it, the hacker doesn't care. The lawyer doesn't care, the front page of the newspaper doesn't care, and your customer, your constituent, your resident, your user doesn't care. That's information you should be managing. This one for me is the most important one. Think about it this way. Let's say it takes 10 seconds. How many people think they can catalogue a record accurately in 10 seconds? Most of the people in this room, I would have thought. How many people think your users can catalogue a record accurately in 10 seconds? Rightio. So now we're talking about everybody else, right? Not you. If you've got 1 million objects in your organisation, that's 10 million seconds. That's 1.4 employee years across your business for that 1 million records that you generate in an organisation. If everyone in your business generates 100 emails and works on 5 to 10 documents a day, that starts at about nearly 40 million objects that are worked on through the year, with changes and other details. That's roughly 53 employee years at 10 seconds each if I ask you to do all. If everybody's only an AO2 who's doing that work, it's $3 million. How many people here pay $3 million for information management platform? How many people have a $3 million budget for their information management? That's what it's going to take to do it the way we're doing it today. There's this thing that I just introduced a moment ago called AI. You can do that in a week. Then I can show you how it can do it in a week. And it doesn't cost $3 million. If you want it to cost $3 million, I'm happy to sell it to you for $3 million. But it doesn't cost $3 million. But it can do that volume of information today. I've got customers that have done hundreds of millions of items across their entire information spectrum, petabytes and petabytes of data, with a team of 2 people. They train the model, they point the system at the platform, it scans the lot, and it gives them accurate categories. And they're sitting at around about 80%. So, people will then say to me, but Kris, 20% of 100 million is 20 million records that are not accurately categorized. And I go, yep, you're right, that is a lot. But it's also 80 million items that are accurately categorized, and you don't have that today. And tomorrow, you now know which ones have got low accuracy. You can make changes to that AI, and you can run that 20 million again. And it's not going to take you a week. And you're going to get those, 80% of those more accurate. And then you're going to be left with 4 million. And you're going to get 2 million of them more accurate. And then you're left with 1 million. And that's if you really could be bothered. Because honestly, if you've got a process in place and you're accurately categorizing what it is, and you've got a business model in place to actually do the reviews and checks and balances, you're all more compliant than you've ever been, ever before, and you're doing less. Which means that you can now actually add value back to the rest of the business. All the things that Stephen and Matt spoke about how you get back into the business and show them this value, is by leveraging tools like this. AI is your best friend. AI wants to help. If it had a smiley face, it'd have a smiley face. At the end of the day, AI is cheaper. It's more consistent. It's more accurate. It doesn't sleep. It'll do it when you go home. It does it on the weekend. It doesn't take holidays. It doesn't have apathy. It just does as it's told. It can do it at the scale that you require. The survey results that I'll talk about tomorrow for the pulse of the industry says that over half of this room believes that their information that they're managing will double in the next 12 to 18 months. Spoiler alert. We all knew that already. You have to be able to do this at scale. And it does exactly what it's told by the subject matter expert. And the subject matter experts are in front of me. AI is actually here to help you. And now it's morning tea time. Thanks, everybody.